So my last video, I feel like, was less than satisfactory, but it's what felt right, I guess, at the time. So when I watch it again, I might not feel that way, but what comes to my mind right now is philosophical divide. You know, um, I'm sure, I don't know what I've talked about in my previous video, so I don't know to what extent I'm repeating something that's already been said, but I'm just moving forward. But philosophical divide at the core of all human action, I believe, keyword believe, because I am not an educated fellow. Our philosophy drives us. It's our actions. It's the reason that we do what we do. It's the code of conduct. Now, philosophy can be a very extensive topic to cover. When I say philosophy, I don't necessarily mean that you have a formal education and you have gone to a school that has been accredited or given authority on the topic of philosophy. But I think that, to my understanding, to be philosophical is to seek the knowledge, to seek knowledge of its original source, and the methodology or the method by which you do that is through question. And whatever you question in your mind with the intention of seeking the answer is the type of philosophy that you're in, that you're into, that you're interested in. But at the end of the day, the interests that you have, the questions that you ask, the questions that you want to ask, and the answers that you find are going to mold and influence the actions that you display. Like, if you do not believe in any particular religion that is known to this day, then you're probably a lot less likely to be worried about disobeying any of the rules of that religion, because insofar as you're concerned, it's not real. So what follows is also not real, regardless of the reality, because this all exists in your mind. These are the concepts that fuel your actions and your interactions. And I say that because I've examined my own philosophies for years now. I mean, at least compared to the years before my journey really began, and as time has gone on, the degree of my examination has only heightened. And I have come to realize that I act certain ways because of certain beliefs that I have that are results of the answers that I get to the questions that I ask, more specifically the questions that I am interested in asking. And to whatever extent that this is a factor, we all have different interests. So therefore, we're going to ask different questions, because we'll ask the question that is interesting to the individual. And so I think what will be found is a commonhood, a common ground between two or more parties who have a shared interest in any particular subject. However, their interest in that subject will be relative to the individual. So that doesn't mean that they will be interested to the same extent or for the same reason, but to the extent that they are interested, and to the extent that they have the same reasoning for the interest, there will be a sort of harmonious bond, so long as they agree with the conclusions, with the answers that they come to. Because a lot of it still comes down to preference. Like, how do you want it? How do you want it? I heard Alan Watts talk about, for example's sake, there may be a time in human existence where really flavorful, thick, and salty gravy is all the rage. It's what's popular. But as time goes on, what would be considered a fine quality gravy, and I feel like that's a bad example, but I think that's what he used. What would be considered a fine and quality gravy will be something of a more watered down and flavorless consistency. But that's going to be relative to the individuals. And the link that I'm trying to share between that is, yes, I may be interested in politics. So therefore, I might find myself in a class where politics are being taught and or discussed alongside with many other students. But because we're all in the same class, because we're interested for whatever reason in politics, like, it doesn't mean we're going to have the same conclusions on the way things ought to be. So my interest in politics kind of comes from this idea of having unsuccessful or less than preferable relationships with people. There have been many people that I've met, and I wanted to be friends with them, and I wanted to have a good relationship with them, but we had core difference. We had different belief systems. We had different opinions. We had different tastes. And so those things ultimately ended up drawing us to go into separate directions. And that's fine, because it's, mostly it's been all peaceful. But the reason I talk about philosophical division or the philosophical divide to this extent, or in this particular situation, is because to build a strong foundation, to build an organized unit, there has to be a shared philosophy. There has to be a core understanding of the purpose of all the actions. And to the extent that the fundamentals are agreed upon, I think the more harmonious and the more peaceful and the more progress can be made in that group. But, if people have different interests or different reasons for their interest and their involvement in the program, then once those desires have been fulfilled, then there's going to be a conflict of interest, and the productivity of the group is going to go, in an unpredictable way. And I'm sure that maybe the more you examine about it, you think of human nature and mob mentality and what other particular factors may be included, then you'll be able to get a rough idea as to what direction things are going to go into. But philosophical divide is super important. We're coming up on the 10-minute mark here, so I'm going to try to wrap this up. But, too often I found myself close to people, and I think that everybody you can find, that at one point you've been close to somebody, and at some point an event or a circumstance, simple disagreement, caused you guys to go in separate directions. And hopefully it was it was in peace, but there are times where it's not in peace. And so, given the current situation that's going on right now, I think it's pretty clear, at least it seems clear to me, that maybe the most important thing we can do as a species is work with each other, to be peaceful, to stay calm, to talk out our perspectives and find out how you feel and how I feel. And I'm going to go a little over 10 minutes in this one, so forgive me. I don't know, I don't expect there to be progress made. I don't expect the solution to be solved right away. But I cannot just let you assume how I feel and expect you to operate in a fashion that I feel is going to be logical or favorable or appropriate to the situation according to my core philosophies. And I know, talking religion and talking politics, man, things can get hot very quick, and relationships can go under. But I don't know why my screen just went black. Hopefully that didn't show up. But yeah, we need to work on that, philosophical divide. Kind of messed up my train of thought. But anyways, philosophical divide. Understand your core philosophies. Talk it out. I know that it's going to be a long dialogue. It's not going to be something that is solved overnight. Probably not going to be solved over years, maybe not even a lifetime. I mean, where we are now is a result of generations of opposition in terms of not just physical but philosophical positions. Hopefully this made sense. Hopefully held your interest. To be continued.